Thank you, Marcy. Thank you all for being here. And it's nice to be here. We were just last week up at Mohonk, the conference, and just kind of talking about the work that I do on Zoom. I spend a lot of time on Zoom, actually, especially for mindful schools. We do almost a full certification program with this platform. So I teach a lot on it, and in this moment to be of service. So I hope today is of service. I'm not paid by Zoom. I'm not paid by NYSAIS, but I'm not advocating. I know some people may have Zoom versus another platform. I can't necessarily answer those because this is the one that I use, but I show and kind of take you through a test drive of all of the different features and how I like to use them and imagine them working maybe best for you. So a couple of practices that I ask for, I find that especially for a sense of community and for a sense of teaching to a live room, it is easier, nicer, and better, if at all possible, that you have the video on. If you're open to doing that, there may be reasons why you have it off, including that, you know, your internet connection or whatever. But I also want to simulate how I would with a group of students, in which case I would really ask for the video to be on, to know that somebody's home. And so if you're able to do that, that's great. And also just as kind of a welcome and for us to get it of who's here, if you wouldn't mind clicking over into the chat box. So now if you don't have the chat open, you should see it at the very bottom of the screen. It's usually located to the right of the green share button. A couple of people will have different on which version of Zoom you're using. But if you wouldn't mind into the chat box the grade level and subject that you teach, because there's going to be kind of a wide variety of folks here and folks looking to use this in different contexts. If you haven't found the chat box, you'll see that it's now just starting to blink at you, so you can click on the blinking and make you into the chat box. It's sort of fast and furious. So I have another activity planned later so that I'll be able to look at those myself with more time. And then I'll just give a little bit of hold time while people are typing. Great. Thank you, everyone, for all of these. Hold time, which is that whatever hold time you normally give in your classroom, thinking time, waiting time, processing time, you'll be wanting to give at least twice as much when you're teaching online. As the folks are coming in, and sort of by the time you make it to the keyboard and you're reading everything else, so just a little bit more hold time than usual, which at first is a little bit of a learning curve, but easy to get used to. Another, getting a sense of who's in the room, Zoom has a feature called polling. And so Andrew has set up for us just a little poll to get a sense of people's experience with Zoom. So Andrew, if you wouldn't mind launching that, or actually I guess I can launch it, can't I? I'm gonna launch a poll. Sorry, it's here for me, you've populated it here. So I'm gonna send a poll out to you all. You have a little window that asks you just your experience with Zoom, and we can all kind of see. Is it set up so they can see the results, or am I the one getting the results right now, Andrew? Sorry.
I don't know. I'm seeing them, but I don't know if everybody else is as well.
Just give a little wave if you can see them. Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, so you're getting the simultaneous experience. So about half of us in the room so far haven't used Zoom before. And I understand I'm seeing some of you as a no. I'll share the results. So this is one of those things. And specifically, we kind of talked for a really polished web. I actually wanted to not have too much because I actually want to talk out loud and through all of the different that we're using as we're using them, so you can kind of get a sense in real time of what's happening, because some things you can't see on the back end, but just so you have a sense of kind of what it's like in the facilitator's mind or the teacher's mind to go through this. So seeing that the numbers are starting to slow down, and so it looks like we're about even for folks who Zoom before as a participant on a call, but haven't led, and then another 46% of you have never used Zoom before, and a few of you, 7 of you, have taught on Zoom before. Great. This is just to get a sense of who is in the room, and now I can share the results back out. So everyone should now be able to see that. I think it should send it onto the front of your screen. There you go. Right. Good. Okay. So great. Again, none of the things that I'm doing right now are anything other than a chance to kind of show off the platform so that you can start to get a sense of how you use this. All right. I'm going to give a little bit more of an introduction to what I'm going to talk about and my orientation to it. So to do that, I'm going to share my screen. Sharing the screen is a really, I think, one of the key features for a Zoom class. And you have the option, again, you won't see this part, but and I'll share some links. Zoom has all sorts of training videos of how to do each function. So I'm less focused on the how, and I want you to have the experience of what and how it might be integrated into a class. So when you share, you have the option of sharing your whole desktop, sharing a whiteboard that you can draw or type on, or sharing a very specific window. I'm just going to go ahead and share my whole screen. And you'll see there's a little bit of transition time for all of these things. I know because I do this often, could do this simply, but again, I want to try to be more transparent of things. So I'm going to click on the share button. It asks me what do I want to share, and I want to pull up some slides here. You should know that from the perspective of the person who's sharing, we'll take over the screen. So I've just lost the Brady Bunch. Just do these, and I have only small windows of teaching. You may actually prefer to just share the link to slides or something like that. That's another way to do this. There are other ways of shrinking your screen and Xing out of this, but I'm going to stay with this slide share for just a moment. And this is really just for the purpose of storytelling. I will share materials afterwards with you if you're having slide anxiety, but there's no in the slides. I'm going to share a PDF with you. So the purpose of storytelling and you having. So when I was in middle school, had the experience of being in a particularly unusual school. It was a junior boarding school, and the reason it was a boarding school for middle school, all boys boarding choir school. I don't know if there's anyone from St. Thomas here. We were, someone was on the call yesterday. This is not St. Thomas, but we were a touring choir, and so it was not unusual that we would have to cancel class or leave class to go record a CD or to sing in Carnegie Hall or to go out on the road for a month at a time. We had our own little bus. And the reason I tell you this story is because when we went out, we would school in little folders. You are looking at the majority of what was school for me on the road when I was in middle school. They would just pack us. We didn't have the teachers with us. We would just get the little packet. And sometimes we would take some of our textbooks in a little Tupperware bucket under each of our seats. And that was it. That was school. So I say this to say that whatever anxiety we might have about distance learning, we've done it in far more low-tech ways, and we'll be okay. We'll get through this if this feels like a high hurdle. Zoom in particular, pretty intuitive platform. I use Zoom for remote learning, as Marcy mentioned, for mindful schools and in my own to practice mindfulness. And we Zoom as a distance learning platform. And I'll say this, start and end this program. It's a year-long certification with in-person retreats, silent retreats, and then we spend, someone has already found the annotation, you beat me to it. So I'm going to use the annotate tool to just do here, not for any particular reason. Here I am on retreat, and I can do, and these are the participants. I have a number of other tools. You can feel free, if you'd like, to take a moment. And so it's up at the top, you'll see the annotate tool. If you sort of scroll to the top of your screen and use that. And I'll also say, I don't know, some of you may be using it right now. I see that people are using the chat function. I'm not current. So if there's a question that you're having, feel free to just unmute and ask it out loud. Only if it's a question about one of the features I'm mentioning. I'll definitely stop afterwards and do a larger question and answer session. Yes, I have the option to, on this platform, do any annotating. We can type. I'm seeing someone has found the text. Right, exactly. So you can imagine all of the ways that this might be useful for you, whether it's just you annotating the screen or someone else annotating the screen. The reason I mention this or include this slide, and thank you very much for the mustache. That's a nice one. I like all that art. You're all doing great. I see what great artists we have on the call. Fantastic. The reason I offer is because what I have found, you might think it's like really counterintuitive to teach a program about connection, mindfulness, those sorts of things online. We all sort of had that sense. But what is absolutely true is that if you are taking a pre-existing community and bringing it online, that community comes with you. What we have found is that when people are live on Zoom and already know each other, is a very, very transferable relationships. Relationships do actually transfer. So differently if you had never met your students and were about to bring them online, but whatever classroom culture that you've created, you should be able to transfer, especially if you uphold the same norms, the same expectations, like all the personalities with you, for better or for worse. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to keep your annotations and I'm going to clear the screen, which I have the option for either just my drawings or clear all drawings. There they go. And now I'm going to stop share on the screen and come back into the main window. Okay. Having done that, share with you some thoughts about what works well on Zoom. And I'm going to do that with a little Google Doc that I prepared because I want to add to it depending on what comes up in the Q&A at the end. But you're welcome to click over into that document. And I'll just say about a few things first before I send you into breakout rooms and show you that feature as well. So some of the things I've already mentioned here, but the biggest thing I want to what I've heard from colleagues and from folks at other schools is a lot of anxiety and or questions about classroom management. And the thing I'd sort of is forget it. Like forget of the, if you're thinking about classroom management as how do I control behavior on this platform? Like, can I toggle the chat box so that they can't chat with each other while we're talking? You are on a computer and they have 17 apps they can use to chat with each other and they'll just open another window. So it's not like a particularly effective strategy for using this platform. And think about yourself. If this were a faculty meeting, you'd all be having slides with each other. I know, I do it too. So like that's just going to be part of the behavior of what's cooked into the system. What you can, however, do is think about the design of your lesson as your best classroom management tool. using Zoom, you can absolutely do a very didactic lesson. You can share your screen, play a video, show a slideshow, talk, give a lecture. I would recommend that that is a very minimal portion of what you do. It's honestly very hard to pay attention. Even if you close all the things, I just sat through a 90-minute meeting, it was mostly slideshows, and I'm not gonna lie, the number of times I check the mindfulness teacher, like it's very hard to sit and look and listen. It is already hard for our students. It's kind of hard as adults. So just knowing that, I would actually suggest using the Zoom function. You can be in a Zoom room and just record a lesson. Like, it makes it actually pretty easy to flip your classroom. So if you've got, like, you could just record your slides, your stuff like that, send that out to students and really learning, especially because what I think, or what I'm seeing and hearing, is that a lot of folks are taking, you know, fewer class meetings, maybe 1 or 2 class meetings a week. Use that class meeting for the live interactive portion of what you're doing. That is more engaging, that is naturally engaged. And if they're talking, that's the sort of way that, you know, you're always able to, or you have a much greater likelihood of folks kind of staying with you. Similarly, you know, if we're not in, especially if this is going to become like a long and extended thing, it's be nice to have, you know, connection and relationships. And this can be sort of a thing that we offer, is that relational aspect of the age. It's really what I feel, and this is my personal opinion, that Zoom is best set up to offer you, because I'm also the rest of it with other things. Or like I was mentioning in my middle school, with just little folders that had paper in them. You know, we can learn the stuff that way. So what's the bad of being live and being connected like this? It's actually having conversations. So I've offered some suggestions. Some of them I've shown you how to use the chat box here. I've shown you how to use the poll. These are ways of just having sort of a little bit more silent engagement. But of course, Zoom has the power to put us in conversation with one another. And so I'd like to do it first in a small group. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create breakout rooms. And you can't see what I'm doing because it's on my host dashboard, but this is a thing that can do the tutorial. They're super easy to do, but I'm still going to talk out so that you just kind of have a sense of what I'm doing. So Zoom gives me the opportunity to breakout rooms. So instead of going from the big room, I put you into small rooms, and it actually does the math for me. So this is how many participants, how many do you want in a room? So I'd actually like to get us to about 3 people in a room. And so I'm moving us up to, and I just click it manually and it keeps doing the math for me. So if I have 32 participants in a room, or sorry, if I have 32 rooms, that gives me 3 to 4 participants in a room. Now, I know some of you are perhaps, especially the ones whose video isn't open, you may be calling or something else. It'll still offer you the opportunity to go into the room, but if you're driving, please don't drive off the side of the road, just because I'm sending you into breakout rooms. But presumably students, we're gonna have some norms that we're staying put and can do this. So what I'm gonna do in a second is I will, and the function to me is just create breakout rooms, and I'll click that. And I do, it's gonna send an invitation to go into a small group. I have the opportunity to pop into any group I want. I'm not going to while you do this, but I'm going to send you off into the rooms, and I'm going to give you a prompt. Now, as we know with learning, sometimes like students, this is the prompt. And then as soon as you send them in groups, they will say, wait, what are we talking about? Do it too, I promise. So I also have the opportunity to actually send you a message while you're in the breakout rooms. So what I'm going to give you is about 5 minutes or so breakout rooms. Now, the one thing I can't give you is a timer to time it down, so you'll have to use the You'll have to use the clock on your computer or your phone or whatever. And I will give you a time warning, about a 1-minute warning to come back. And what I'd like for you to talk about is one thing that you do in your live teaching to engage students in conversation or interaction. That could be conversation or interaction with you, conversation or interaction with one another. But I really want us to stay in thinking about interactive education. So what's one thing that you do in your classroom, again, just to repeat, something you do in your classroom that facilitates or fosters interaction between students or students one another, or you and students. Make sense? All right, so I'm going to open the breakout rooms now, and here you go. So what you have to do is to click accept, and I'm going to pause the recording for those who are on that, and I'll come back as the rooms have come back. So I've just unpaused the recording. If folks are watching later, it is as if no time has elapsed for the rest of us. Conversation. I just had a question. I'm actually going to go ahead and mute everyone for you, since you've had your microphones on. There was a question, how do we get that function? So included at the bottom of the document that I shared, and I'll share it just again in case it's helpful since things come to the chat since then. So the bottom of that document put the link to Zoom's Help Center, and that's got a tutorial for how to actually super easy. There's a button as a host, I have a button that says Breakout Rooms. I actually click on that. It asks me how many people do I want per room, and then as I zip it off. I should say that is a feature that may or may not be enabled all versions of Zoom, but I want to show off kind of all of the things it can do so that folks are able to kind of make the best decisions about what would work for them. Also understand that I've been freezing a little bit or being spotty, which is actually a great example of what can or may happen on Zoom. It is often best, especially for something that's more didactic, to repeat yourself a couple of times. And as we know, not everyone's paying attention, but also this kinds of things as well. So if it's something I really need students to know, or if it's instruction, I'll definitely offer it multiple ways. I'll say it. I'll also usually say it and chat it. So in much the same way that I offered you the chat box or broadcast version, as well as the instruction before I sent you into the breakout rooms. So, having had the conversation that we just had, I'd actually love to have some folks, so this is just a little debrief. So what are some of the things that you mentioned? And we can use both the chat box. So on a big webinar like this, I would usually stick kind of more towards the box because we can hear more voices more easily. But I also want to show the conversational function. So I'd actually, if you have something that your group talked about and you're willing to just hear, you can actually just unmute yourself. So that's one way. I could unmute you, and you might decide that in your classroom prefer to have students raise their hand and you actually be one to mute them. You can do it that way. That's fine. But for our purposes here, maybe just go ahead and mute yourself and share what are some of the things that we talked about. Some things that foster interaction in our classrooms.
Hi, Alan. It's been a while.
Hi, Gary. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Great.
I'm trying to figure out the best way to basically have a virtual whiteboard, since I teach mathematics, where my students could put things up and everyone could see it, etc.
So couldn't be easy. One of the other things we can share, and it's in actually the option, is a whiteboard. So when I ask, I want to share my screen, I can just have the whiteboard and draw right into it. I type into it all of this. So as we share the screen, in that sharing screen tool, it's going to ask you which screen you want to share. And this particular screen, so first it'll say, do you want to share your desktop? Then the next option over is Whiteboard. So it's just a screen sharing option, and it gives you Whiteboard. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to stop the share now. Love to hear from some folks about their breakout rooms. Of course, I can also call on some folks, since I know some of you on this call will only do it to people that I know. But some of the things that you discussed as things that foster dialogue, interaction, to foster that. I see some from
Alan, can you hear me?
Yes, Marion.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, I mean, the thing is one of the classes that I teach is a Spanish conversation class. So I kind of envision maybe seeing more problems controlling student interaction, because they know that in that class they get a lot of credit for engaging. So for something like that, it would be a matter of trying to get them to listen to each other and respond appropriately, as opposed to everyone trying to talk at the same time. And I have like 14 kids in that class. Right.
So one of the strategies that I like to use for that is to actually have students call on each other. I certainly can do it from here.
Yeah.
Of everyone in the room, and I can see. I always like in the Brady Bunch view, the gallery view, so that I can see everyone. But it's actually also nice. It kind of keeps them on their attention toes. But it's more interactive when a student says, "Okay, you choose who goes next." And one of the ways I often do it is we'll say, "Who's to the left of you on the screen?" And that person calls on the person to the left of them, and that person calls on the left of them. And we say, like, if nobody's to the left of you, then who's the next row or over, until everyone's had the chance to speak. And that way you kind of can ensure keeping the conversation bouncing around the room. It's kind of the virtual version of having the Nerf ball or the, and tossing it around.
That's a good thought. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Would you like to call on one of your colleagues?
I like to call.
They talked about it there. Yeah, you can pick on one of your colleagues and about what they spoke about in their breakout.
I'd love to ask Joan what she would do. Is Joan still here? Maffetone?
Are welcome to pass, but if you'd like to offer something from your group,
Joan, I am here, Mary, and I knew you were going to call on me. Well, we talked about two of us who are English teachers, and we talked about how this format would work really well for us. Although, Alan, I do agree with you. I would not want to do this every day. I don't know that would be the best way for me to engage them. But we talked about teaching English, asking questions, different things that we do, forced ranking characters, working on a Harkness table, ways that we keep the students engaged with each other in their conversations about the literature. So this would work, but I would not want to do this every day. I think it would work.
But if you had to, yes, I see Catherine. Go ahead. Yes, you're on.
Hi, Alan.
Hi.
I have a question. What's the youngest age group have you used this platform with? Because I teach first grade, and we're trying to figure out ways of bringing 17 first graders into a gallery like this. So what's the youngest age group that you've worked with? Successfully, let's put it that way.
I've never worked with an elementary age group.
Okay.
Like that. But if I'm trying to imagine how might I do it, I guess there's two different questions. One, are they sitting with a parent?
Right.
Or are they kind of alone-ish? That's sort of a first question. Obviously, if they're, I don't know if they could really do it if they're not kind of with someone who's kind of co-piloting. And let's imagine that. But you have the option here of muting and unmuting anyone I want. I could look at the thing, and here's where I might call on someone. And so I would say, okay, Madison, what was your answer? Oh, thank you very much. Okay, Beatrice, and I will manually mute and unmute that screen as we hear them.
Okay.
You know, I would, in a meeting of all adults, even starts to get noisy by leaving the microphones open, or all the feedback, all the whatever else is happening in the house, someone walks through, right? Like, so it gets a little bit messy. That would be the nice way, is just if the microphone wasn't so sensitive, leave the thing on. Wouldn't it be nice if in our teaching we could mute the students and then they would just stay muted? Yeah, but we can't, and it's in this as well. I think, you know, again, it's like versus not. They're aware. We're all seeing your screen now. A little screen share. All good. Thanks for that. But the, you know, you might, for example, send the story ahead of, and they've watched the story of you. Again, we go towards the flip model, so that really we're especially with an earlier, like, kind of minimizing the amount of time they have to at one moment really stay there with you, but just watched the story, or they watched the story some that morning before your meeting, and you get a chance to write about that story or the character, or, you know, whatever. That's my gut instinct, but I don't have any expertise in this.
Thank you.
Yeah, teaching older. You're welcome. You're welcome. Great. Yeah, we're sort of veering towards questions in a good way. I wanted to just follow up. Joan, you were mentioning the Harkness idea. I think the more that we do to keep kids engaged in the process as the content of the conversation. So, you know, I don't know if you've ever used those Harkness trackers. Who really are into the Harkness pedagogy, there are tracks for what kinds of questions and what kinds of responses are being made. That's the sort of thing where you could have that Google Doc in the side that everyone's in, and they're all tracking. That was an analytical conversation. That was a citation from the text. That was a new question. That was responding to a colleague, you know, and sort of use that sort of thing to, because I think it is a little bit, I'm not usually one to suggest multitasking as the thing, but having kind of enough tasking. The question on Zoom is like, is there enough going on to really anchor us into what's happening here on this screen? Because so many other places to pay attention to just on the screen, let alone, you know, in the world that's around them, and they don't have like the biological cues. So having kind of task cues, that's the first thing that came to me for something like a Harkness discussion. Happy to hear some other questions that folks, or things that they're hoping to do, or trying to figure out how Zoom might help them if it. And since you don't all on the screen, usually you would. Oh, I see, Robin, you have your hand up. Use your hand, which is an awesome option. And for you if you'd like. Yeah, Robin, hi, what's up? Not hearing you, even though you're unmuted. That's strange. Maybe try from your, mute you again. Mute yourself.
Because I did it when I was a tutorial for Zoom, like a training video.
Robin, I have a list. Can't quite hear. Okay, Robin got maybe kicked off. We'll come back. Robin signs back in. Anyone else? Other questions you're trying to think through?
Alan, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is there a way, because this is all new to me, but is there a way to show a video on this and then stop it and have a discussion with my students?
100%. So, I will, let's get up the, oh, I think I had it. Sorry. Here, I have one open. Just happened. One of my colleagues earlier was for a similar thing, suggested a Zoom or a video. So I'm going to share my screen, and there's one setting that you press that is different, which is share computer sound. So it's asking you if you want to take the computer sound with you or not, which I'm going to do. And here, so I have now video.
Shower and the blood starts pumping out on the streets. The traffic starts jumping with folks like me on the job.
And then, and you can see it. Again, this is just whatever on my desktop will show. So I could pull this up and do that at any time. I can pause, I can unshare. I can, if I were to go back to the share, I pick up at the same point. You're welcome for anyone who's a Parton fan. And yeah, no problem. And sometimes that can be easier. Like, so for example, in a course I was teaching that involved some mindful movement, we had a movement break. And because if I were to stand up and do like yoga, you would just like, I use my head, you can't see my feet. So we would actually have a pre-recorded video of me teaching the movement part, and then I would come back and I'd be back here. So like there are lots of ways you can use it, but it's very easy to show a video. It's basically no different than the screen share function. And honestly, even if you didn't, the microphone usually picks up you're just a little bit muddled.
Okay, Alan, I'm back. Marion,
Yes.
I'm back. To follow up on that, now if I have an external, because I also have a foreign films and Spanish class.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I have an external disk drive that I can hook up to my computer, then I could show the movie, correct?
Whatever if you're seeing it on your screen, you can show it to them.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Alan,
Absolutely.
can you repeat how to share your audio from your computer?
So if you can see at the bottom of your screen, right in the center, it's a green button that says share.
Yes.
That is the button. So you would click on that, and it's going to then ask you which screen you want to share or which window you want to share.
I see it at the bottom now. Share computer sound. Thank you.
Exactly. That's it. It's pretty easy. And again, even if you didn't get the sound, or they'll tell you the sound isn't working, and you unshare, and then you click it and you share it again.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Other questions that folks have. Okay, seeing Dana Foot's screen.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, take it off. We'll stop sharing.
Yeah, you can stop sharing is at the top. There you
Figured
go.
it out.
Got it. Yep, you got it. Anyone else? Other questions that are Michelle, I see a hand up. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, hi. So I mostly just wanted to know if that feature worked. And are you able to, do you get an alert when my hand goes up, or?
Yeah, so I can see it. I get in my participants list.
Okay.
It shows me at window, it has a little blue hand that says your hand is up. And it sends you to the top of the participant list.
Got it. Okay, and then another question is where the same thing is in the participant list. It says go slower, go faster. Does that mean I'm asking you to go slower, or does that mean it's like rewinding? Or like
it's asking me to go slower or go faster. It's basically all of those things are things that just send a note to me. So if you pressed it, it'll give me a little that says, wait, go slower.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Other questions? Again, here's where the hold time and the wait time.
Hi, Ellen.
Yes, hi.
Hi. Since I came in late,
Oh, you figured out the virtual background.
So is there something, we can look for later for us to know all these tricks we can do with this app?
Yeah, so in the document that I sent, I made a link into Zoom's Help Center, which has the tutorials of the functions. Okay. And they usually have about 30 seconds to 1 minute versions of a video that will walk you through it. Okay, everything that I have done on this call, I've done within 3 clicks. I've not done anything that's special. The only thing that's a little bit more, it takes a little bit of work, is a poll, because you have to type in the text of the poll. Mm-hmm. But launching the poll is 2 clicks. So all of those videos are very quick. Yeah, and like I said, the link is at the very bottom of the document that I put in the chat.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Hello,
we can hear you.
Yes, Robin, we can hear you.
Yay. I just restarted Zoom. So I asked my question in the chat, but I had one more question which came up, and I tried to do some teacher training sessions last week. And one question that came up was, is there a way to do any kind of like timed assignment, like I don't know, a quiz or like a writing assignment, but something that was like timed?
Zoom is not the platform I would recommend for that. Yeah.
Okay.
Short of a poll, like the poll function is the closest you're gonna come to that.
Okay.
It's more for the collaboration part. And then if you want to have them do something that's specifically assessed, I would use something either from within your LMS or one of the add-ons. Yeah, thank you. Zoom is definitely your best friend for connection, less so for the assessment. Although, if you're doing something like a presentation, folks are making slides, giving, you know, a reason or anything like that, Zoom is actually totally for all that. As you've seen, you can share slides, you can share videos, they can talk over their slides. That kind of stuff would work very well on Zoom. Other questions? I have time for a few more.
Alan?
Yes.
Hi,
Hi,
I had my
Barbara.
hand raised. I don't know if, can you
Oh,
see
you
my
did.
hand
I'm
raised?
sorry. I didn't look over there. So in the
That's
heart of the
fine.
facilitator, there's lots going on.
I
Great.
know.
Tell me.
Yeah, so I think if everybody can get a little familiar with the participant button that's to the left of the share, because that's where participants can raise their hand, they can vote yes or no, they can, there's some things they can, that participants themselves can use that your class will find really helpful. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
And the other, I had a question about whether you can prevent Dana Foote from sharing her screen or anybody else from sharing their screen.
I would never want to do that to Dana, but for anyone else,
Dana, but you wouldn't
you're
want
right.
all your kids in your class to start sharing their screens, even
Right.
you know, by mistake.
I am 99% certain that there's a feature in the settings of the room that allows you to lock it, right, Andrew? I see you.
Correct. Yes, that's
yeah.
correct.
Yeah. So it's in your settings, and you can do that again. That's going to be in that Zoom tutorials of what settings you have. Yeah.
So it's in Zoom preferences.
It's in the right. Yeah. It's
okay.
If you're live, you have to do that one before the call.
You can also do it during the call. So right now on the bottom of my screen next to share, I have a little caret. And if I open that up, there's advanced options and I can turn it off so that nobody else will be allowed to share except for the host. And the same is true for annotation tools.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a video settings right there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great.
And I think I just choose a virtual background.
Oh yeah, there too. So
but my computer isn't set up to be able to do that for some reason.
And not all computers will do that. There is also there's a feature in the settings called Touch Up Your Events. I don't think it does all that much, but I always check it. So Sean, you have a question. I'm going to unmute you. Hi.
Can you talk to me a little bit about co-hosting? Like, is there a limit? Can you get 2 teachers, 4 teachers, 6 teachers, team teaching in a block or something like that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how many you can do at once. You can have multiple co-hosts. You can only have one host. The host is the person who controls the break rooms, but pretty much all the other functions, I believe, are available to co-hosts. It's also not super important that everyone's a co-host. Like I think, yeah, but you can definitely have multiple co-hosts. Right now we have 3 going, and I could probably add more. So
can you repeat that first sentence? The host is the only one who controls.
Host is the only one who can do the breakout room. So when I send you off into small groups, that is only available to me as the host, right? Andrew, you can't see the breakout room function right now.
Correct. I think that's only you.
Yeah, so but all of us can stop the recording and do some other things. But as long as you designate one person anyway, then you're okay.
Right, right. But if you have kids in a breakout for like, I don't know, half an hour and 3 teachers, only one teacher would actually be able to visit the breakout groups.
Oh, well, no, what you could do there is, so when I'm in breakout rooms, I am the only, as the host, I have a math control panel. What that does on the control panel is I have 2 choices. I can send people, I can choose the groups, or I can send you into randomized assortment. So what I would do in the situation you're talking about is I would manually set up the groups. I would choose them for them, and I would leave the teachers of the groups. So now when we send them off, they're all in groups of 3 or 4, and you have your 4 teachers, right? And you want teachers to go in and out of the room, be in.
Right. Like maybe 3 or 4 teachers want to circulate amongst 20 kids.
Yep. So one of you probably wants to stay behind and be sort of the captain of the ship, who's, you know, at the control panel, those people into other rooms. So you can, you're going to go into room 2. When they're done, they leave that and they come back out and they say, okay, what room is next? And then you send them into room 3. And you stay at the control panel. Yes, can do that.
Okay.
Alan, could you take one more question? We're just about out of time and we want to respect people's time. Can you take one more question?
Sure. So Rachel, hey. Rachel, I see your hands up. I'm going to unmute you there. Rachel DiGiovanni.
Hi, my question was how did Hailing Zhao figure out how to change her background? My 3-year-old would love that.
It's a feature in your, where is it? That's in the participants. My computer won't do it.
I can do it. You have to have like an i7 processor or faster. But if you go to the bottom next to stop video, to the right of stop video is a little caret. And if you go into up into there, there's choose a virtual background. And then there are some preloaded ones. And then you can also upload your own image. I sometimes have our NYSAIS logo behind me, but on a different computer because my computer won't do it either.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And Alan, in particular, I want to thank you for giving us so many things to think about and so much guidance and so many ideas. It was a lot of information. If the recording comes out well enough and the audio is good enough, we'll certainly send it along to you, as well as that document that Alan shared in the chat box to make sure that you've got those notes as well. Alan, any final comments you want to share before we close?
Yeah, I would just, my one other case use of Zoom, I teach a clinical trial of mindfulness for people with Tourette syndrome and tics. And what we found with that group is we did a test on Zoom, specifically using Zoom because it's often hard for people to find resources. And one of the major findings of the first round of that trial was the connection that people shared. And that was a group who'd never met each other. Like I can't hammer, so we actually state the control condition to have similar kinds of breakout and all that kind of connection. I can't stress using this as a live tool for connection is, I believe, your best path to using Zoom. We absolutely do almost everything that you do in a classroom for didactic instruction, but really focus on connecting with her and having a live experience that feels engaging. And I wish you much success. And I'm actually looking forward to that part of this experiment, which is like, how does this all get used? And I would actually love to hear if you're doing something interesting.
I think you're sure to get reports back.
Hope so. Please,
Thanks.
I'm actually curious. Let me know.
Thank you all for attending. And first and foremost, most importantly, please stay healthy, be well, take care.
Thank you so much.